The first question we were going to ask is corruption a major issue in an election in India? Is it our most important problem? Now, any election issue has to fulfill two criteria. First, it has to be an important issue for the people of India. So we asked, what are the main issues that trouble you today? And this is what people said. The single biggest issue that people across the country said that affects them is corruption. Unemployment is second, poverty third, terrorism, Naxalism fourth, and prices fifth. So corruption fulfills the first criteria in any election issue. It is important to the people of India. But the second criterion is one party better than another in solving that problem? And on that front, it's neck and neck. 54% said Congress more corrupt, 46% said BJP more corrupt, and let me tell you, that is not statistically very different. So really, it's 50-50. So in many ways, Shopun, corruption is not an election issue. While it's important to us, to every voter, they don't know who to choose to solve it. But there are a few states, just a quick look at this, where corruption is important, where one party is seen to be more corrupt. Congress is clearly more corrupt in Rajasthan, where 70% said it was more corrupt than the BJP, Orissa 60%, and Madhya Pradesh 59%. And there's one state where it is also an election issue. The BJP in Karnataka is seen to be more corrupt than the Congress, 58. But Shopun, every other state is 50-50, so it doesn't affect my vote.
Well, you see, Pranoy, normally there are issues and there are opinion poll issues. Now, you've done enough opinion polls in your lifetime that people have had hot meals. And you'll have found that price rise is a perennial issue.
Right.
It's always there.
Yes.
And unemployment.
Actually, I was very surprised to see it fifth, in fact.
So, price rise and unemployment, invariably, regardless of the economic climate, is always there on top of the polls.
Right.
So, the fact that corruption suddenly, which normally used to feature around 13-15%, has suddenly shot up to such an important,
it's the first time.
To my mind, it would suggest that politically it has become important.
Right.
Right? Now, obviously, if an issue becomes politically important, it is going to shape the political decision making also.
But if one party,
Tamil Nadu,
right,
if you had taken a poll in the last assembly election, you would probably have found that 50% say
one is more corrupt. So then it doesn't become a vote.
And therefore, but at the end of the day, the results showed that there is a vote against the incumbent.
Right.
So normally, if I would say that if corruption has been brought to the top of the pile, I think that would suggest an inherent anti-incumbency.
Well, I think the results of two of the states are being discussed today, and we'll see if it shows that.
Yeah.
MP and Orissa are being discussed today, and I don't think it...
Well, no, I think the very interesting thing is that MP and Odisha are states where Congress has been out of power for a very long time.
And yet
it's so much more corrupt. So whoever was in power earlier has done work for two more generations after them. Because usually it's the incumbent that is seen to be more corrupt. Because somebody who's not incumbent, how can he be corrupt? And in this case, somebody hasn't been incumbent for a very long time. In fact, in Odisha, the Chief Minister is serving his third term. So this tells you that that Congress party lost out. It will pay for its sins that it allowed to go on unchecked.
But it did surprise me that it was more or less 50-50, both basically equally corrupt, both parties. So Zoya, there are two ways to look at that. It's not going to be an election issue, or...
Can I add something to it? Yeah. That's also because it's more money-making ability in the hands of the Chief Minister now. And the BJP just happens to have many more chief ministers than the Congress party. And if anything, its chief ministers are enormously more effective and more powerful than those of the Congress party, who are basically chapatis in Delhi.
But when you say both parties, everybody is corrupt, there's another way to look at it. Is there room now for a third or new force to come into politics, which is seen as non-corrupt? Now, whether it's Anna or somebody, is this an indication that corruption is important, an issue, but we need somebody who's going to solve it? And at the moment, there are no alternatives. Is that glimmer of hope for Anna or somebody else?
I think what is very clear from this is that corruption is certainly a very salient issue. And this is not the first time that it has acquired salience. I mean, the 1989 elections, 1990, the corruption issue, the Bofors scandal, and the Congress lost power largely because of that.
But there, sorry to interrupt, there VP Singh was seen clearly as a
yes, now
less
the
corrupt
different,
person.
that's
So there was
the
a
interesting
vote.
point.
Yeah.
That's the interesting point.
Yeah.
But then the
Carry on,
polity
sorry.
then was very different. You did
Yes.
not have coalition politics. It was really the first time that you're going to have it, or the second time that there was going to be a serious non-Congress government. But I think what I find interesting here is that, yes, corruption is certainly more important. And as you said, there is now a possibility, as everyone is predicting, that neither of these two forces are going to emerge as, they'll be the single largest party. But the possibilities for a third front or a third formation is important. Now, I'm not sure whether that's going to be the Anna Hazare formation, but certainly there are plenty of other third parties or third fronts which could become important. But I think it's a combination of issues. I'm not sure whether when elections are actually held, corruption alone is going to be important.
No, it won't be alone, but it's
Corruption-
I think, as Chopin is saying, it's unusual to see it top of the list and clearly on top. So
But
there
it
is
has
something
a lot to
happening.
do, if I may say so, Prannoy, it has a lot to do with the political mobilization, the political
Yes.
campaign.
Yeah,
And
as
BJP
the
has
campaign goes
quite
on.
successfully spearheaded this
Yeah.
whole anti-corruption campaign.
Actually, we are joined by Veerappa Moily, the minister, sir. Sir, corruption is an important issue, and the Congress is seem to be a corrupt party, and therefore you're not going to gain anything from votes. And Chopin Dasgupta says, with corruption as a major issue, it's an indication of anti-incumbency against the Congress.
So, yeah, the question is, yes, corruption is an issue. I don't say that corruption is not an issue. But whether the corruption by rhetoric or by argument or perception or corruption on a concrete parameters, this is what is required. You all know many of the governments are now headed by NDA partners or the BJP. And ultimately, they are the people who have to deliver on the spot
Right.
in the respective states.
Okay.
Ultimately, the national politics comes next. So, it has to be taken in a holistic way.
Right.
Sudhindra,
Sudhindra, if I can just put that point you're making, sir, to Sudhindra, as Mr. Moily is saying, it's all rhetoric. You guys are just talking, there's no substance, so the voter will see through your rhetoric.
No, it would be a huge mistake on the part of any political party to think that this is rhetoric and people really are not serious about corruption. If you have conducted a huge poll and corruption comes on top of all the issues, it means that people are really agitated. But I want to make a point.
But are
here.
they agitated against the BJP as well?
Yes,
Everybody.
if you.
So are you going to join Anna?
No.
Quick switch.
We are really concerned about the figure that you showed about Karnataka. Karnataka was a problem. But if you look at all the other BJP ruled states, it just shows that we have been able to not only contain corruption, but people still remember corruption of the previous Congress regimes. And taken nationally, see, on the one hand, people say that
is the credit
corruption.
of the Congress party. They did so well in the past.
That
They've got their first innings lead on you.
point here. The people think that this is the most serious issue, and today the Congress says there is no corruption in the 2G issue, no corruption in the coal.
But Mr. Moily says you talk about things in the air.
Which
people will
means that
see
the
through this.
People are really not believing in the Prime Minister.
But are they believing
And
the
this is a
BJP?
serious
Are they
issue.
believing you?
No, barring Karnataka, we really come across as a party that is far less corrupt.
Not really.
No,
50-50 across the country.
In India, there is much more central corruption. So I think the public in general, though Congress may not be a ruling party in Madhya Pradesh, they see every night on television, newspapers, the image of Colgate and whatever, and that helps to reinforce the image.
And media has played an important part.
very
in
important
that. I think
role.
Media has played a very important
Are you saying something nice about the
You know,
media? Can we
because,
dwell on that a bit?
India had never heard of figures like 1,76,070
Right.
crores,
Okay.
1,86,000
I do want to
crores.
move on now. I want to move on to a
This
state.
is what has created the perception.
Right. But don't forget, almost 50% feel BJP is equally corrupt. So there's a problem there. That's the lesson.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.